When 34-year-old Maya moved into her first real apartment after years of renting furnished rooms, she had $600, a secondhand sofa, and a deep fear that her home would always look cheap. She wasn't an interior designer. She couldn't afford one. She had no Pinterest-perfect budget, no family heirlooms, no statement artwork. Just white walls, IKEA basics, and a dream that her space could feel like something out of a magazine. 6 weeks later, 3 people asked her who her decorator was. She didn't hire anyone. She didn't spend thousands. She discovered 7 principles that the interior design world quietly uses to make spaces look expensive, and almost none of them involve spending more money. This is the quiet luxury method, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to apply it to any room, any budget, any style. I want to be clear about what quiet luxury actually means, because it's been misunderstood online. It is not beige. It is not minimalism. It is not emptying your home until it looks like a hotel lobby. Quiet luxury is the art of making a space feel intentional, elevated, and deeply considered without screaming for attention. It's the difference between a room that looks expensive and a room that looks like someone tried to look expensive. And that difference comes down to 7 principles that most people have never been taught. Drop a comment right now. What room in your home feels the most off to you? The one that just doesn't feel right no matter what you do. I read every comment, and I'll tell you exactly which principle applies to your space. Principle 1. The rule of negative space. Why empty beats full every time. Maya's first instinct when she moved in was the same instinct every person has. Fill the space.
Shelves packed with objects, walls covered with frames, every surface carrying something. She thought more meant more. It meant chaos. The first principle of quiet luxury is understanding that negative space, the empty areas in a room, is not wasted space. It is active space. It is what allows the eye to rest, to focus, and to register that what is in the room has been deliberately chosen. Think about why luxury hotels feel expensive the moment you walk in. It's rarely because of what's there. It's because of what isn't. The surfaces are clear. The sightlines are open. Every object has breathing room. Maya cleared 60% of what was on her shelves. Not thrown away, simply stored. What remained suddenly looked curated. The same objects that had looked cluttered now looked collected. Here's the practical test. Stand in any room and photograph it. If your eye doesn't know where to land first, there's too much competing for attention. Remove items until one thing in the room draws your eye immediately. That's the moment a room starts looking expensive. The psychology behind this is simple. We associate abundance with wealth, but we associate intention with taste, and taste reads as expensive every single time. What would you remove from your main living space if you had to cut it in half? Tell me in the comments. You might surprise yourself with what you'd let go of. Principle 2. The texture triangle. How to make a room feel rich without color. Maya's sofa was gray. Her walls were white. Her rug was beige. On paper, it should have felt sophisticated. Instead, it felt flat, forgettable, and vaguely depressing. The problem wasn't her color palette. The problem was that everything felt the same weight, same visual texture, same surface quality. It was the design equivalent of eating a meal with no seasoning. Quiet luxury rooms are almost always built on what designers call a texture triangle, 3 distinct material qualities layered into every vignette in the room. Something hard and smooth, something soft and napped, something rough or organic. In Maya's living room, this became a linen sofa, a chunky knit throw, and a stone candle holder on the coffee table. Same neutral palette, completely transformed feeling. The reason this works neurologically is that our eyes process texture before color. A room with 1 color but 3 textures will always feel richer than a room with 3 colors and 1 texture. You don't need to buy expensive items. You need to buy different items. A $15 jute basket next to a $20 ceramic vase, next to a soft velvet pillow, creates the sensory complexity that our brains read as luxury. The most expensive-looking rooms in the world, the lobbies, the editorial shoots, the homes in Architectural Digest, are almost never monolithic in texture. They are layered, tactile, and physically interesting. What textures does your main room have right now? If you can't name at least 3 distinct ones, that's where to start. Comment below and tell me. I'll give you a specific fix. Principle 3. The light hierarchy. The single most underestimated design tool. If there is one principle that separates expensive-looking rooms from average ones, it is this: the source and quality of light.
Maya had an overhead light. One overhead light. It cast flat, even illumination across the entire room, flattening every texture, washing out every shadow, and making the whole space feel like a waiting room. Quiet luxury spaces never rely on overhead lighting as the primary source. Here is the principle. Every room needs a light hierarchy. Overhead ambient light is the base. It should be dimmed, warm, and set at 70% maximum in the evening. Then you layer in mid-level light from floor lamps and table lamps, which create pools of warmth and draw the eye to specific areas. Finally, accent light, candles, small decorative sources, undershelf strips, adds depth and shadow, which is what gives a room its soul. Shadow is not the enemy of a beautiful room. Shadow is beauty. It is what gives dimension to objects, warmth to surfaces, and life to spaces that would otherwise feel dead under flat lighting. Maya bought 2 secondhand floor lamps from a thrift store for $18 total. She replaced her overhead bulb with a warm 2700K equivalent. She added 3 candles to her coffee table. Her apartment looked completely different. Same furniture, same walls, transformed entirely by light. The rule of thumb: if you can see every corner of the room equally well from where you sit, your lighting needs work. Expensive rooms have mystery. They have corners that glow and corners that recede.
Tell me in the comments, do you live primarily under overhead lighting? Because if you do, fixing that alone could change everything about how your home feels. Principle 4. The odd number rule. Why 3 always beats 2 or 4. This one sounds almost too simple, but it is one of the most consistently powerful principles in all of visual design. The human eye finds even groupings static and predictable. When objects are arranged in 2s or 4s, the eye bounces between them symmetrically and moves on. Nothing holds, nothing lingers. Odd groupings, 3s, 5s, 7s, create visual tension that forces the eye to navigate, to engage, to stay. Maya had 2 candle holders flanking her TV. Symmetrical, neat, forgettable. She added a third, slightly taller one, offset to one side. Suddenly, the arrangement had weight, interest, and visual pull. The same objects, a completely different effect. This applies to everything: throw pillows, books on a shelf, objects on a console table, plants on a windowsill. 3 items of varying heights will always look more intentional and more expensive than 2 matching ones. The reason this principle is so powerful is that it mimics the way expensive spaces are actually styled. Professional stylists almost never place objects in even numbers. They work in rhythms of 3, creating movement and visual narrative across a surface.
Here is your immediate action step. Look at any flat surface in your home: a coffee table, a shelf, a mantle. If it has 2 objects on it, add 1 or remove 1. The change will be immediate and noticeable. Are you an even number decorator? Symmetrical, matching, paired? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how common this is, because it might be the fastest fix available to you. Principle 5. The scale principle. Why 1 large thing beats 10 small things. This was Maya's most expensive-looking transformation, and it cost her almost nothing. She had accumulated what many of us accumulate: a collection of small, inexpensive decorative objects, little frames, small vases, tiny figurines, each one purchased with good intentions. Together, they created what designers call visual noise, dozens of competing focal points that cancel each other out and make a space feel cheap and busy. The quiet luxury principle of scale says this: 1 large, impactful object will always look more expensive than 10 small ones. A single oversized mirror transforms a wall. 1 large ceramic vase on a console table makes a statement. A single wide-format photograph commands a room. Maya sold her collection of small objects and bought 1 second-hand ceramic floor vase, waist height, in a matte cream tone. It cost her $22 at an estate sale. It made her entire living room feel like it belonged in a boutique hotel. The psychology:
Large objects signal confidence and intention. Small objects, especially many of them, signal accumulation, that things have been collected without curation, which reads as amateur and inexpensive. This principle extends to art. The most common decorating mistake is hanging art that is too small for the wall. A piece that barely covers 1/3 of a wall looks like an afterthought. A piece that fills 2/3 of a wall looks like a choice. What's the largest single object in your main room right now? Does it actually command the space, or does it disappear into everything else? Tell me. Your answer will tell me almost everything about what your room is missing. Principle 6. The color anchor. How 3 tones create infinite sophistication. Quiet luxury rooms are not colorless, they are color-disciplined. Maya had painted an accent wall terracotta in a previous apartment and loved it. She tried bringing that energy into her new space with colorful cushions, a patterned rug, and a gallery wall of mixed-framed prints. The result was a room that felt chaotic, juvenile, and expensive in the worst possible way. Lots of money spent, no coherence achieved. The color anchor principle is simple. Choose 1 dominant tone, 1 secondary tone, and 1 precise accent. That's the entire palette. Everything in the room should belong to one of those 3. For Maya, that became warm white walls, natural linen and oak tones throughout, and 1 deep forest green as the accent, appearing only in the throw, 1 vase, and a small plant pot. The restraint is the luxury. Anyone can add color. Discipline in color is what reads as taste. The specific tones matter less than the commitment. A room anchored in rust, ivory, and charcoal will feel expensive. A room with rust, ivory, charcoal, sage, navy, and yellow will feel like a clearance sale. Here is the test. Name the 3 colors in your main room right now. If you can't stop at 3, that's the problem. Everything beyond 3 is visual competition, and competition kills calm. What's your current color situation? Are you working with a palette or a collection? Comment below. I guarantee this is where most homes quietly fall apart. Principle 7. The living element. Why organic matter changes everything. This is the principle that surprised Maya most, and it's the one that interior designers quietly rely on more than almost any other. No matter how considered a room is, how well lit, how well scaled, how perfectly textured, if everything in it is static and manufactured, the room will feel display-like, beautiful but cold, like a showroom rather than a home. Living elements, plants, fresh flowers, natural wood, stone, water features introduce organic imperfection into a space, slight asymmetry, natural variation, evidence of life.
This is what separates rooms that look expensive from rooms that feel expensive. One is a visual experience. The other is a sensory one. Maya added 3 plants, not a forest, 3. 1 tall structural plant in the corner of the living room to add vertical dimension. 1 trailing plant on a high shelf for softness. 1 small herb pot on the kitchen windowsill, because the smell of basil in a home is its own form of luxury. The difference was immediate and visceral. The room exhaled. The principle works because humans are biologically wired to respond to living things. Our nervous systems relax in their presence. We associate them with care, abundance, and attention, all things we associate with expensive, well-maintained spaces. You do not need rare or expensive plants. You need plants that are alive and tended. A thriving $8 pothos in a beautiful pot says more about a home than a $200 dried arrangement that signals neglect the moment dust settles on it. If plants intimidate you, comment below. Tell me what's killed every plant you've ever owned, and I'll tell you exactly which plant you cannot kill. I have an answer for every person who has ever said they don't have a green thumb. 6 weeks after Maya applied these 7 principles, she sat in her apartment with a cup of tea and realized something had shifted, not just in the room, but in her. She had stopped apologizing for her home. She had stopped saying, "I know it's not much," when guests arrived. She had stopped feeling like her space was a waiting room for the life she actually wanted to live. The quiet luxury method didn't make her home look expensive. It made her home look considered. And considered is the most expensive thing a home can look. 3 people asked who her decorator was. She told them the truth. She was. That's what these 7 principles actually do. They don't change your home. They change your relationship to it. They give you the language and the eye to see your space as a designer sees it, and to make deliberate choices instead of accumulated ones. If this video gave you even one idea you're ready to use, hit like and share it with someone whose home could use a reset.
And if you want the week-by-week, room-by-room transformation guide, subscribe and turn on notifications, because that's exactly what's coming next. Which principle are you starting with? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.